The smell of grilled sesame and burnt soy lingered in the air, thick and stubborn like old sweat. The kitchen of Emperor Foods, one of Seoul's finest fusion restaurants, pulsed like a war zone. Blazing pans, barking orders, chefs moving in staccato rhythm like soldiers in a fevered dance. In the center of it all stood Olivia, calm, steady, and sweating. The flames licked the bottom of her sauté pan, but she didn't flinch. With one gloved hand, she tossed vegetables slick with pepper oil, and with the other, she held a ladle of roasted egusi sauce, thick and fragrant, folded gently with ginger and gochujang. She moved fast, like she was being timed because she was... Table 4, two bulgogi jollof wraps, go go go, came the shout in Korean. On it. Olivia called back fluently, her voice sharp, her accent barely noticeable after nearly a year in Seoul. Her dish hit the service counter in under 7 minutes. And just like clockwork, silence fell for a moment when the plates went out. Every chef in that kitchen had learned a hard truth. Whenever Olivia cooked, the diners reacted. There were audible moans of satisfaction. Gasps. Compliments yelled across the restaurant floor. It was supposed to be head chef Min Jae's kitchen. But everyone, even him, knew the real show happened at Olivia's corner. She wasn't even Korean. And, to some, that was unforgivable. You must think you're something, sneered Hyren, a senior sous chef, cornering Olivia near the spices rack. Just because the customers like your food. Olivia didn't answer. She had learned silence was a better blade. You people always think you can come here and shine. Hyren pressed, leaning closer, her voice low and venomous. But we see through it. You're temporary. Disposable. Olivia looked at her. Slowly. Calmly. I'm not here to shine. I'm here to cook. And she turned away. Olivia had not been handed anything. Not in Enugu. Not in Lagos. Not in Paris, or Accra, or Mumbai, where she apprenticed in chaotic kitchens and shared rooms with 5 other culinary students. Her parents died when she was barely 22, and from that moment, her life had been about movement and meals. She cooked for survival. She cooked to belong. But here in Korea, she cooked for something else. She cooked to stay. Her contract with Emperor Foods was 6 months. She was 2 months in, already making waves and enemies. But she was also making sales. Her name was beginning to circulate in online forums, the African chef who made magic with rice and meat. But with every glowing comment came sabotage. Yesterday, someone had switched her garlic paste with shrimp paste, knowing she was allergic. Last week, someone had hidden her prep knives. Today, someone had poured salt into her dry rub mix. She adjusted. She stayed quiet. But she never served anything below perfect, because perfect was the only thing keeping her from being replaced. That night, after closing, Olivia trudged out of the kitchen, her back aching, feet raw inside her worn sneakers. The Seoul sky was gray and moody, a faint mist curling around street lamps. She wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck and walked through narrow alleys toward her tiny flat. Her apartment wasn't fancy. 1 room. A sink in the corner. A squeaky floor fan. But it was hers. She pressed her key into the lock. And then stopped. A figure was slumped against her door. At first, she thought he was drunk. It wasn't rare in her neighborhood, a place known for forgotten men and cheap cigarettes. But as she drew closer, her stomach sank. He wasn't moving. Hey, she said softly in Korean. Are you okay? No response. She kneeled, cautiously. His breathing was shallow. His face pale. His body trembling slightly under a worn gray hoodie. She touched his arm. Burning. Oh God, she murmured. She reached for her phone to call emergency services, but the man stirred. His voice cracked like paper. No, hospital. His eyes fluttered open briefly. Deep, tired, confused. I don't want. You're sick, she said sharply. I don't have time for this. Do you live around here? No response. She looked at the key in her hand, then back at him. Stupid. Risky. Foolish. And yet, with a groan, she pulled him in. She boiled water, made a light pepper soup without pepper, added ginger, and a splash of vinegar. She wrapped him in one of her only 2 thick blankets. His fever was high, but his breathing slowed by dawn. He never spoke again that night. She watched him as he slept, curled in the corner of her room, next to the wall where she usually kept her bags. She barely slept. What if he was dangerous? What if he robbed her? What if he never left? But in the morning, he was still there. Quiet. Weak. And oddly polite. When she offered him food, he shook his head. Later, he croaked. She sighed. Just my luck. I finally get home and find a stray. He smiled faintly. She scowled. What's your name? Silence. I said. He looked confused. Embarrassed. I don't know. Olivia froze. What? I don't know. I don't remember. A silence stretched between them. She blinked. Twice. Amnesia? She asked slowly. He nodded, unsure. She wanted to laugh. She wanted to cry. She wanted to throw him out. But instead, she handed him a spoon and said, Fine. You eat. Then tomorrow, we go to the police. He nodded. But the next day, he didn't go. Morning light filtered through the thin curtain of Olivia's cramped apartment, painting soft gold across the peeling white wall. The stranger lay quietly, head turned toward the window, blanket half kicked off. For a moment, Olivia watched him in silence from where she sat on the edge of her mattress, tying her headscarf. This wasn't how life in Korea was supposed to go. She was supposed to wake up, cook, survive, and maybe, just maybe, find a moment to breathe between double shifts. But now she had a half-dead man with no memories in her room, and a fridge that was barely holding on to power. Okay, she said aloud to herself, standing up. You need to go. The stranger stirred. His eyes opened slowly, sleepy, slightly unfocused, like a child waking from a nap. Are you okay? She asked, trying to sound firm. He nodded. You're not feverish anymore, she observed. And you slept in my only blanket. So, now it's time for the next step. He blinked. We're going to the police. His eyes darkened immediately. He sat up straighter. No. Yes, she said, already tying her apron around her waist. You don't know your name. You don't know where you're from. You showed up at my door, sick and dying. I helped. That was charity. Now, the system takes over. He flinched slightly. I'll figure it out. You will. At the station. I'm scared. His voice was low. Real. And it annoyed her more than she expected. Scared of what? He didn't answer. She exhaled. Long, loud. Look, she said, turning to grab her bag. I have work in 20 minutes. You have no ID, no wallet, no phone, no idea who you are. If someone sees you here, I'm the one who gets arrested. He opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, then stopped. Instead, he looked down at his hands. Please, he said quietly. Just one more day. Olivia stared at him. She hated how her chest ached when he looked like that, uncertain and humble, like a stray puppy left out in the rain. She bit her lip. One more day, she repeated through clenched teeth. Tomorrow, I take you to the station myself, whether you're conscious or not. He smiled, not smug but grateful. And damn it, it was a nice smile. The subway was crowded as always, and Olivia found herself squished between a teenage couple filming a TikTok and an old man yelling at his cracked phone. She wore her chef coat over a basic cotton turtleneck, her tote bag full of spice mixes from a Nigerian online store she had begged her cousin to send from Lagos. At Emperor Foods, the air was already thick with tension by the time she arrived. Hiren gave her a passing shove near the locker room, and someone had moved her spice rack again. She sighed. Yuni, they're still messing with you? Yuna asked gently. She was one of the waitresses, bright, friendly, a few years younger, and the only one who ever defended Olivia out loud. It's fine, Olivia said, resetting her station. Let them waste energy. I'll use mine to cook. Yuna smiled. The customers love your cooking. They'll never fire you. That's what scares them, Olivia muttered. During the lunch rush, Olivia was in her zone. Her hands moved like magic, chopping, stirring, drizzling, plating. She served a modified Korean jollof bento to a diplomat's entourage, mixed a gussi with doenjang for a curious food blogger, and folded grilled tilapia into gochujang tamales for an anniversary couple. When she stepped out for her 5-minute break, she found a surprise. The stranger, standing outside the building, waiting for her. He waved with both hands like an excited kid. She hissed and pulled him into the alley. "What are you doing here?" "I followed the map," he said, holding up her spare phone. "You left it charging." "You stalked me to work?" "I didn't want to stay alone," he said simply. "I told you to stay inside." "I tried. But your place smells like cabbage and wet socks." "I got bored." She rubbed her temple. "You don't even know me." "I know your food," he said. "And your kindness." That made her blink. He didn't ask to come in, didn't push her boundaries, just stood there awkwardly, tall and handsome in a borrowed hoodie and jeans that barely fit. "You shouldn't be here," she said again, but her voice had lost its bite. He looked around. "Is this where you work?" She nodded. "Kitchen slave. Welcome to Emperor Foods." He gave her a slow, impressed nod. "Looks fancy." "It is. And they're very particular. If anyone sees me with a random man loitering outside, I'm in trouble." "I'll go," he said quickly, stepping back. "I just wanted to see." He paused, then added, "Also, your fridge is broken." I turned it off. She slapped her forehead. "God, you touched the switch." There were sparks. It growled at me. "You unplugged the damn fridge? With meat in it." He nodded solemnly. There was a sound. I thought it was possessed. Olivia groaned so hard she felt her bones shift. "Just go home," she said. "Don't touch anything. Don't break anything. And for heaven's sake, don't follow me again." He gave a sheepish salute and jogged off. She sighed and whispered, "What have I gotten myself into?" That night, Olivia came home to a mess. The rice bag was torn open. The oil bottle was half empty. Her best pot was burned black. "What happened here?" she yelled. The stranger popped his head from the bathroom. "I was trying to cook." "For who? Yourself?" "No, for you." He stepped into the light, holding a plate of what looked like rice pudding fused with fish head stew. She gaped. "You tried to make ogbono?" "I saw the labels on your containers. I Googled it." "You can't even remember your name, but you know how to Google ogbono?" "I'm learning fast," he said proudly. "Try it." She sat down hard on the floor, dropped her bag, and laughed until her stomach hurt. "I'm going mad," she said. "You're driving me mad." He smiled. "I'll clean everything. I promise." "And the fridge?" Still unplugged. She groaned again. Later, she watched him wash the dishes. He sang softly, a tune she didn't recognize. His voice was untrained but warm, pleasant. "You're lucky you're handsome," she said, lying back against her pillow. He glanced at her. "So you do think I'm handsome?" She cursed herself inwardly. "Go to sleep." Days passed. He stayed. They fell into a strange rhythm. She'd go to work. He'd stay home, experimenting with cooking or trying to clean. Sometimes she'd come home to oddly folded clothes or furniture moved 2 inches to the left. He made mistakes. So many. But he tried. One evening, she came home late and found candles lit and a steaming bowl of spicy sia ramen, terrible by her standards, but charming. "I wanted to surprise you," he said. She sat. Ate. Smiled. "You're improving." He grinned. "Thanks, chef." Another night, they argued about the hot water settings. "You used up the whole tank again. I have a lot of hair. You barely have eyebrows." They laughed in the hallway until their neighbor yelled at them to shut up. He stopped sleeping on the floor. She gave him a foam mat, then a pillow. Then, one night, they fell asleep watching a movie on her phone, both curled up, legs tangled. She told herself it was harmless, until she woke up with her head on his chest and didn't want to move. One Friday, as she was plating a special order, head chef Min Jae brushed past her shoulder hard enough to make her hand slip. The sauce spilled. The dish was ruined. He turned to her and hissed in Korean, "You're slipping, Olivia SSI." Maybe it's time you went back home. Yuna rushed to help her, but Olivia straightened, wiped her hands, and made the dish again from scratch. In 10 minutes. No tears. No complaint. But that night, she walked home slower. Her feet hurt more. Her heart felt heavier. When she opened her door, the smell of stew hit her. Good stew, actually, and her stranger popped out of the kitchen with an apron and a goofy smile. "Welcome home, chef." She froze, then laughed. And for the first time in weeks, she let herself lean into his chest and whisper, "Thank you." She didn't know what was happening between them, but she knew one thing. He felt like home. The first sign came on a rainy Wednesday night. Olivia had just closed from a brutal double shift. A celebrity chef from Busan had made a surprise visit to Emperor Foods and insisted on tasting the African woman's food, which had put everyone on edge. Olivia delivered, of course, because she always did. But it left her body aching and her mood raw. She was halfway down the quiet alley behind the restaurant when she noticed it. A figure. Too still. Too quiet. Watching. She glanced back once. Then twice. But the man, or shadow, disappeared into the nearby alley before she could make out a face. The hairs on her arm rose. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. Instead, she quickened her steps, pulled her coat tighter, and shoved her pepper spray deeper into her hoodie pocket. By the time she reached her apartment, soaked and cold, she was trembling, and not just from the rain. Inside, her stranger was attempting to sew a button on his only good shirt using kitchen thread and a toothpick. He looked up. "Hey, whoa, are you okay?" "I think someone followed me." His entire posture shifted. He rose quickly, took a towel, and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Did you see who?" "No. Just a silhouette." He frowned, his jaw clenched. For a man who didn't remember his own name, he looked dangerously alert now. "Sit," he said. "Let me check outside." "What? No." "Are you crazy?" But he was already grabbing her umbrella like a weapon and heading for the door. She blinked. "You don't even know who you are. What are you gonna do? Fight a stalker with your lost memory and an umbrella?" "If someone's watching you," he said, his voice lower than usual, "I want to know." That silenced her. Not because it was romantic, but because it sounded practiced. Trained. He returned 5 minutes later, drenched, breathing hard. No one there, but footsteps in the mud down the alley. Fresh. Size 10 or 11. Male. Olivia stared at him. "How do you even know that?" He hesitated. "I don't know. I just looked. I noticed." She pressed her lips together. "And what are you, Sherlock Holmes now?" He didn't smile, and that scared her more than anything else. The next morning, she left for work early. He walked her to the station like usual, keeping a step behind her, eyes scanning the road, hands occasionally curling into fists. "You're being paranoid," she said. "You were scared." "I'm always scared," she muttered. "Korea's nice, but not if you're black, female, and from a country no one wants to hear about unless they need oil or entertainment." He didn't answer, but when they reached the turn for the subway, he paused. "Come straight home after work," he said. She squinted at him. "Excuse me? I just mean don't stop anywhere late." She laughed. "You giving me a curfew now?" His eyes met hers. "No. Just worried." That did something strange to her chest. She turned quickly and walked away. At work, the atmosphere was suffocating. After the praise she received the day before, Chef Min-jae was clearly on edge. He muttered to himself between orders, pacing, snapping at assistants for no reason. "Olivia SSI," he barked after the rush. "Why didn't you add soy to the beef stew today?" "Soy overpowered the okra base last time," she replied calmly. "I tested a smaller ratio of black bean paste. It gave the umami balance." He sneered. "You're here to follow recipes, not make them." She tilted her head. "I thought we were here to evolve cuisine." He flushed red. "Watch your mouth." She bowed her head slightly, a move she'd mastered in Korea. Just deep enough to show surface respect. Never deep enough to mean surrender. As she turned, she caught Yuna's gaze from across the room. Worried. protective. But what could either of them do? That evening, Olivia took a different route home, winding past a row of convenience stores to pick up eggs and canned tomatoes. She had to borrow money from Una earlier that week after the meat in her fridge spoiled. It embarrassed her, but she was used to scraping to survive. Outside the shop, she paused. That feeling again. Eyes. She looked around. Nothing. Then, a flash of a coat disappearing into the shadows between two buildings. Her breath caught. She sprinted home. When she burst into the apartment, her stranger was on the floor, surrounded by recipe printouts and scattered spices. "Whoa, what happened?" he asked. I saw him again. He was on his feet in a second. Same coat. Same height, she said. I'm not imagining it. He frowned deeply. You need to tell the police. No. I'm not giving them any reason to check my ID or ask me why there's a mysterious man living in my house. I'll deal with it, he said flatly. She scoffed. And how do you plan to do that? I don't know, he admitted. But it feels familiar. Like I've handled this before. She studied him. For all his silliness, mistaking vinegar for water, folding socks in squares, trying to use her foundation brush to stir stew, he now stood in the kitchen doorway like someone trained to handle danger. It unsettled her. You're not just some random amnesiac, are you? She said quietly. He didn't answer. That night, she couldn't sleep. So she watched him. He dozed off while reading a beginner Korean cookbook, brow furrowed, mouth slightly parted. She noticed the scar just behind his left ear, thin, faded, almost surgical. She hadn't seen it before. She got up quietly, went to the window, and pulled the curtain aside. Empty street. But her body knew better. Someone was watching. The next few days settled into strange tension. They didn't talk much. She cooked more than usual, sometimes using her stranger as a test subject. He tried to clean and accidentally broke a bowl. She scolded him. He made her tea. She forgave him. One evening, they sat on the floor, sharing dinner, a spicy red stew over sweet rice. You know, he said between bites, you don't talk much about Nigeria. She shrugged. What's there to say? I want to know. Your home. Your family. She went still. I grew up in Enugu. Lost my parents young. I worked 2 jobs through university, then traveled for food. Cooking was the only thing that ever made sense. He watched her gently. Were you happy there? I survived. Same as here. He reached across the mat, brushing her hand lightly. You do more than survive. She pulled back slowly, heartbeat thudding. This is temporary, she said. Whatever this is between us. Why? Because if you remember who you are, you'll leave. And if you don't, you'll still leave. Men like you don't stay. His voice was soft. You think I'm that kind of man? I don't know what kind of man you are, she whispered. That's the problem. Silence stretched. Then he leaned in just slightly. Not a kiss. Not yet. But closer than he'd ever dared. I only know this, he said. Every day I stay here, I remember what it feels like to belong. Not because of a name. Not because of a past. Because of you. Olivia swallowed hard. That's not fair. He leaned back, gave her a sad smile. No, it's not. Later that night, when he was asleep, she opened her phone and typed into a search engine. Symptoms of memory loss with combat awareness. How to tell if someone is lying about amnesia. How to protect yourself from being tracked in Korea. She deleted the history immediately, then sat in the dark, torn between the warmth of his presence and the growing fear that he had a past, and it was about to catch up with them both.